Hello and welcome to another episode of Parker's Previews powered by The Hammer. This is a show where I'm going to take advanced stats, analytics, and data to dive into college football matchups so that we can be better consumers of on-field college football content and we can be smarter investors as we approach these matchups. This is show number 3 this week. Make sure that you're following the YouTube channel and at Parker's Previews on Twitter so that you can catch those and make sure you get and lock in those bets as well. And anywhere you get podcasts as well, you can find the show. So make sure that you're there if you want to listen to it in audio format. Like I said, this is week 8 of college football. This is game 3 that we're going to talk about here. So an interesting matchup between we're going to go to the SEC and we're going to look at South Carolina and Texas A&M. Texas A&M on the road traveling to South Carolina, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Texas A&M in this spot. The line is currently, it opened at 4.5. It's down to 3. So I like that a little bit better, kind of being inside of that 3.5 hook. And if we look at the money and the lines, 52% of the bets are on Texas A&M, but only 29% of the money. So a lot on South Carolina as an underdog here. I actually think Texas A&M might be undervalued just a little bit, even though they've had an absurdly chaotic season. So before we look at the in-depth matchup, let's talk about kind of each unit and each team here. For those of you that are watching along with me, what we're looking at here is kind of the college football universe, right? On the Y-axis, we have efficiency up and down for offense. And on the X-axis, we have defensive efficiency left and right overall. A little bit crazy with all of these logos kind of sticking out. So the first thing that we look at is neither South Carolina nor Texas A&M stands out of the crowd as kind of an outlier in anything. They're both very average. South Carolina, right here buried between Washington State and Toledo, you can see the C there. And then Texas A&M right here, very similar to Notre Dame, Louisville, and without adjusting for opponents, UConn, which is never where you want to be. Texas A&M is firmly in the quadrant of this graph that says, hey, your defense is pretty okay, but your offense is pretty bad. Whereas South Carolina is almost the opposite. Their defense is not great, below average, and their offense is slightly above average. So a little bit of a mismatch here, or maybe a kind of funhouse mirror looking at these two teams. Both teams that I think thought their season would be going a little bit differently. Certainly neither of them being ranked coming into this matchup, but Texas A&M is 3-3. South Carolina is 4-2 on the season. The Aggies are favored, and I think overall should be the right play here. They've struggled a little bit this season, kind of again with some injuries. They lost what would we consider an embarrassing game to App State, and have just kind of been up and down, back and forth. Maybe not exactly what they planned for this season. They're 1-2 in SEC play, looking to right the ship in a rivalry game. Was called a rivalry game for some reason, but Texas A&M has lost 2 straight after being ranked Miami, beating ranked Arkansas close. They lost pretty badly to Mississippi State, and then a really hard grit game against Alabama. They lost 24-20. On the other side of the ball, South Carolina, they're 4-2, so they just one more non-con win. But similarly, they're 1-2 in conference play. They lost to Arkansas that A&M beat pretty badly. They lost to Georgia, and then were able to outlast a Kentucky team that's kind of been up and down this season. So South Carolina kind of has a nice stretch after A&M. They've got Missouri, Vanderbilt, Florida before they go Tennessee, Clemson. So maybe they can string together a couple wins here and try and get 2 of 3 of this A&M, Missouri, Vanderbilt stretch before they go to Florida, Tennessee, Clemson to try and get bowl eligibility. But enough with the narratives and enough with the storylines. Let's go ahead and let's look at the numbers for this matchup. I have Texas A&M as 89th in EPA per play margin. Remember, EPA per play margin leans a little bit more heavily towards offense, so they're going to be penalized for that a lot more. South Carolina is 64th in EPA per play margin. Texas A&M's offense is 95th. South Carolina's defense, 79th. So that is definitely the worst on worst kind of unit. That's kind of the battle of the bads there. We'll see how that plays out. I think there's some underlying stats that suggest that A&M's offense might be able to capitalize. And then On defense, Texas A&M is 63rd compared to South Carolina being 61. So a little bit more even on that side of the ball. I think that really benefits what Texas A&M is going to be able to do in terms of, holding the ceiling here against South Carolina. I have this matchup by about 5 points here, a little over 5, with a 65% win probability for Texas A&M, a 35% win probability for South Carolina. One thing to look at that's really going to be skewed by some of those early games, Texas A&M is 107th in echo ratio and quality possession rate. Only 43.9 of their quality possessions in games all season of theirs have been theirs, whereas South Carolina is 33rd with 55.4. But there's some finishing differences there that I think are going to make a lot of difference. And Texas A&M has a bye week, got to rest up, got to worry a little bit more about this opponent, maybe settle in and try to fix some things. So let's look at the kind of side to side matchup comparisons. When Texas A&M has the ball, they're 103rd in EPA per pass, and a whole lot of that comes from the quarterback. It really does. It comes from they've had Max Johnson in there. Maybe it was looking all right, but he's been injured. Haynes King was maybe supposed to be the quarterback of the future, and doesn't look like he had totally settled in there. King is 57.7% completion on a 10 average depth of target, 4.7 turnover worthy plays compared to 1.7 big time throws. Max Johnson, when he was in there, 1.3% big time throws to 2% turnover worthy plays on an ADOT of 8.2. Yards per attempt for King was 6.9, 7.3 for Max Johnson. Okay, so I don't know if I need to tell you anymore that Texas A&M's passing offense has not been explosive at all, right? They're really having trouble getting the ball through the air, which is they've lost Anais Smith for the season. He's been really he's a really good receiver and kind of limits them, but they do have some promising weapons on offense that I think in the run game will be able to save them. Devin Achane has been just great for them. He's one of the 5 most involved players in college football because he is such a versatile threat out of the backfield and as a receiver. 5.1 yards per reception there, but 108 yards after the catch, which is really good. And so he's a weapon that's kind of interesting. I think could present matchup problems. In the run game, he's averaging 5.4 yards per run. He leads the team in attempts, has 97. Nobody else has more than 15. 3 touchdowns, 2.81 yards per contact, 22 missed tackles forced, and 18 runs of 10 or more yards. One thing I really like about this matchup against South Carolina is they really are balanced between zone and gap scheme. 56 zone runs for Achane, 41 for gap runs for him. So South Carolina has been much better against the pass, 31st in EPA per play, but they are 116th in the rush, whereas Texas A&M is 55th in EPA per rush. South Carolina's defense is 116th. Remember, when we see a split like that, 31 to 116, we think selection. So actually, their pass defense might not be the 31st best pass defense in the nation either. I think that this defense is ripe for exploiting. I think Texas A&M might be able to move the ball against them here. In terms of echo rates, again, quality possessions, South Carolina is much better at preventing them. They're 33rd in echo rate allowed compared to 111th for Texas A&M's offense. But South Carolina 70th in points per echo. Huge drop off in terms of efficiency from how many quality possessions they allow and how well they allow you to finish them. So that's definitely something to look out for. A&M might be able to make some drives count against this unit that plays maybe the break but don't bend defense. Lastly, a big split that I think will go in A&M's favor if they're going to be rushing a lot. If South Carolina does appear to have a bad rushing defense, A&M is 88th on early downs EPA. South Carolina's defense is 38th, but South Carolina's defense is 103rd in third and fourth down success rate allowed. They're allowing 47.1% success rate. So compare that to Texas A&M, who hasn't been great, 113th. That at least provides an opportunity for Texas A&M to have a slow, methodical drive, maybe extend the drive by getting these third downs, moving the ball a little bit consistently here. On the other side of the ball, so South Carolina 61 on offense, Texas A&M 63. I want to talk a little bit about efficiency here in success rate. South Carolina has not been very successful rushing the ball, but they've been very explosive rushing the ball. They're 64th in offensive success rate, 91st in passing success rate, 37.6% In the run game, 45.0%. That's reflected in their EPA. They're actually a little more explosive than they are successful in the run game. 0.143 is 22nd best in EPA per rush. But this pass game, 83rd in EPA per play, almost as bad as Texas A&M's. Really has not been there, despite the fact that they got some transfers in Spencer Rattler, Austin Stogner, some guys that maybe they thought would be immediate boosts here. If we look at their pass game, Rattler 7.6 yards per attempt. He's 65.5% completion on a 7.0 ADOT. He's got a 3.9% big time throw rate compared to a 6.0 turnover worthy play rate. They've dropped 8 of his passes. That's 6.7. So on 12.7% of Spencer Rattler's dropbacks, he has a turnover-worthy play or a drop. That's not very good. That is very, very worrisome. In terms of the receiving core here, nobody really standing out. You've got Wells and Brooks as the 2 leading receivers with Lloyd and McDowell out of the backfield. So there's some versatility there, but it seems like there's not a lot of consistency out of the pass game. And so South Carolina is really having to rely on the rush. The rush game, pretty good. Lloyd is leading the team, 74 attempts, 5.8 yards per attempt, 7 touchdowns, 2 fumbles, 4.32 yards after contact, 26 missed tackles, and 15 runs of 10 plus there. So pretty explosive runner in Lloyd, and McDowell's not too far behind. He's only averaging 2.5 yards after contact, but he is a little bit more, of the hardy back, if you will, there. A&M has been a little bit better against the pass than the rush, 43rd in EPA per pass, 81st in EPA per rush. But one thing I really like about this Texas A&M defense, they are very frustrating in scoring opportunities. They're not letting you get a big play opportunity, as we saw against Miami, for example. They can really frustrate an offense once that offense crosses the 40. Texas A&M is 11th in points per equal, 2.87, less than a field goal when you cross the 40 against Texas A&M's defense. Given that South Carolina's defense is so bad and they're going to have to rely on this offense to score a lot, the fact that Texas A&M will be able to stifle that in a short field, if Texas A&M can get any offense here, they could run away with this game, absolutely, despite what kind of the late season narrative has been for these two. So if I'm looking at odds and kind of shopping a little bit of what we've got here, I think you can see -3 for Texas A&M most places. Some places you can get at 110, some places you get at -107. I wouldn't pay for a half point there or anything. I don't think that's going to matter. The 2.5, I think you're okay just writing this one out in the long run. But I like A&M better than a field goal here. Again, my model about 5 points, and looking at the run pass splits and looking at how good Texas A&M's defense has been in scoring opportunities, I'm going to ride with the Aggies here. A little bit of a get right game. Nice little SEC sprinkle for the end of the week. Thank you so much for listening to Parker's Previews. This has been video 3 of week 8, our 3rd game. Make sure you go back and check out the other ones. Make sure you follow the YouTube channel, Parker's Previews on Twitter, at Stats of Wars, me on Twitter, posting all kinds of graphs and charts and thoughts about the games. Best of luck. I hope your bets cash this weekend, and I'll see you next week with 3 more bets. Catch you next time.